Testing, testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing. All right. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Come on, give me some energy.
Yay!
Let's go. Woo! Can I get a woo or something?
Oh, that was just me. Great.
All right. Fire up. Welcome to Morning Startup. My name is Scott Glue, one of the organisers of this thing, and I didn't think I'd be doing this MC stuff this morning because I'm a big crook. But Dave didn't turn up. Where the hell is he? Where are you, Dave?
I think he missed the building. I'm Nina.
Oh, we got photos and everything.
Yeah,
that's how
that's
professional
me.
we are.
We have also Aaron and Dave who did not show up.
Yeah, it's a bit of illness going along.
Yeah.
But thank you all for coming along. It's 7:30 in the morning on this day. The coffee will kick in eventually, I'm sure. So what we like to do, well, first of all, who's never been to Morning Startup before? Okay, quite a few. Wow, welcome. So we run every 2 weeks, rain, hail or shine, and we get an interesting speaker and we talk about startup-related stuff. So if you're starting a company or studying or even thinking about starting a business, usually in tech, that's sort of our angle, then hopefully you can come along, meet some really cool people, learn something interesting, and walk away smarter than you walked in and better connected. So that's our goal. That's what we want to do. Just want to encourage innovation and entrepreneurship in WA.
Yeah, we're organised by founders, for founders, and we've been running for I was going to say 13 years, but Aaron said last time 15.
It's around there, 13, 14, 15. No one's counting anymore. I'll get into stuff later. But shameless plugs and announcements. So this is your turn to stand up, give us a little pitch, 30-second thing about what you're working on, an event coming up, anything you like. Your cat's birthday, I don't care. What do you want to talk about? This is your turn. Who wants to go first? Shameless plugs and announcements. Let's go. All right.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ife, the first time here, and what I'm building is called Wheel Night. And what it is a smart network layer automatically creating workflow level micro segmentation for all your agentic workflow, and works on any platform. You can use in code level integration. You can do sidecar containers, and working for every programming language as well. So if you are trying to make your AI more secure, our philosophy is if you limit what it can touch, it won't break anything. So if you're interested to do a secure AI, or if you have a startup you want to scale up, please come talk to me. And we probably have the best and cheapest solution, also give you the quantum resistance as well.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Who would like to go next?
Yes.
Hello, good morning. My name is Josh Quack. I help small businesses and startups build cybersecurity strategies. In addition, we also provide training from reputable centers like Lumify. So if you want yourself or train in AI, cyber, or ML, let me know. I get you the best deal. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. All right.
Nice.
So how do we find out about you for all the people on the live stream and things? Don't forget to mention a URL or something.
Hello, Peter.
Hey, Peter.
Peter from Innovate Australia. We are organizing another AI Innovation Summit. This time is AI Innovation Summit Australia-India. It's in Indian Consulate here on St. Julius Terrace. Some of you might know we have a fairly new Indian consul, so it'll be a good chance actually to meet her. And we have also some interesting speakers. And we advertise in the calendar on our website, innovateaustralia.org. So all welcome. Thanks.
That's cool. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Love it. Cool.
Right, I'll go. Thank you. Hello, everyone. First time here. My name's Damien. I work with Jared at Multiple AI. We work with a full end-to-end AI with agents. We've got our own model and air-gap solution now. We're pushing into international markets. So if you're looking for a bigger solution that's safe and reliable, come and see us. But if you're looking just for something smaller, we can help you there too. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
We should get more claps. Do we have any more? Or are we
Any other shameless
just
plugs?
one more?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Darren O'Leary I'm founder of Restore Subsea, and our focus is removal of subsea pipelines with a patented technology. I originally invented it back in 2020 under COVID. I've moved into an office here in St George's Terrace at the moment with the people who are investing in that, gave us this first seed funding, and we're on a runway for a Series A, and we're looking at this epic subsea decommissioning removal market, which is enormous in Australia, it's enormous globally, and we've got a tech solution. So if you need to remove some subsea pipelines, come and see me.
All right.
It's very cool. Wow. Thank you so much.
Has anyone got a subsea pipeline that needs removed?
We have one more and then we should probably move on.
All right, one more.
One more.
Good morning, my name is Ramis. I'm building IP Exchange. It's a platform that streamlines and makes IP transactions more secure, and it solves a big problem in terms of a lot of IP that's currently sitting at big research institutions that doesn't get commercialized. So that's the idea of IP Exchange, connects buyers and sellers in a secure environment to streamline the process.
Okay, fantastic.
Thank you. All right.
So if there was anything there that caught your interest or you want to know more about, we've got about half an hour of networking after the talk today. So get to know each other and help each other out.
Oh, we meet every first Wednesday of every month on the other side of nowhere in West Leaderville. It's really fun. It's just pizza, there's alcohol, it's fun, really chill.
That's right. It's buy your own alcohol, but we supply the pizzas. So
Yeah.
come along, and if you're not a morning person.
Oh, and we also meet here every second Wednesday, because I don't think you and I mentioned that earlier.
Correct, yes. What is going on with the Monday? Turn that down. Stop it. Maybe if I move over here. So if you can, fill out this survey. This is, if you came last week, Startup WA and the folks at Meshpoints are putting together a cool initiative to fund projects to help the startup ecosystem, innovation ecosystem in WA. And this is one of the initiatives, starting with a survey on founder mental health. So if you can fill that out, it takes about 7 minutes. That will help inform a roundtable that's coming up in March, I think, that you can participate in. That would be great. All right, everyone got the code?
Ooh.
Who likes watching live streams?
Yeah.
If you do, Perth Video, head to perthvideo.com.au/morning startup Perth with hyphens, and you can see what's going on here. There's also all the past events, all the recordings up there. And if you need live streaming, check them out. They're awesome.
Yeah, and Perth Video is really, really cool because they don't just do live stream. They do all kinds of events, and they can even do interview for your startups, and then create really cool marketing elements. Because honestly, in the age of AI and how it's all going, it's great. AI is amazing, but I think we're also craving authenticity, and perthvideo.com.au can help you with that.
Absolutely. So I'm trying to attack that feedback. Ammo marketing. It's Jack here. So we're just going to go through some sponsors that help us out with food and putting on the meetups and things. Ammo marketing. If you need marketing assistance in your startup, check them out. Also subscribe to their Weirder Growth podcast. It's really cool. It's Perth-based founders and entrepreneurs. So you can learn some great stuff.
And there are a lot of actual local founders, which is really interesting to hear their stories and how they've started things.
Yeah, so, telling stories about what's happening in WA is really important to help get investment into this ecosystem and everything. So please support them, go and subscribe, listen to their stories. Beecham Group, if you can just give a shout out. I'm going to try and see if I can turn
We don't
this
have
down.
Glenn here, but Beecham Group is basically helping with all HR stuff. So recruiting exceptional talent. Right now, it's really, really hard to hire anyone, right? It's because especially with all the CVs being made by AI, everyone sounds fantastic, and Beecham Group can help you figure that out and find the right people.
Get the right people for your startup.
Yeah.
Thanks, Beecham Group. And of course, coffee. Who's got a coffee? Excellent. So your startup is now VC funded because that's supplied by Purpose Ventures. Thank you, Purpose Ventures.
Thank you.
If you haven't heard of them, if you are a fundable startup, you're looking at being that billion-dollar valuation one day, make sure you are pitching to these guys and they can help you out on the funding side of things.
Yeah, and we had them as guests, and they have actually shared a lot of tips and tricks at how you become investable and what they look in people when they are looking into investing in your business.
Absolutely. And of course the food. There's some food at the back. Got some fantastic donuts today. That is supplied by Everest Engineering. Tom is usually here, or at Founder Sundowner. But what they do is they help you out with developers. So if you've got an app idea or something, but you don't have the technical skills, hit up Everest Engineering and they can help put a team together to build what's in your head. They're really, really good at it.
Yeah. And they literally got us donuts. They look so good.
Thanks for the donuts. Okay, and of course, Space Cubed for this wonderful place every 2 weeks. They got a few other places down the terrace where you can work. Make sure you subscribe to Startup News and put your story on it. They'll send a journo out to your place and do a story on your startup if you need. Startup WA, they're our body for pitching to government to get all cool funding and grants and all that stuff. So make sure you're a member of Startup WA. It's 100% free and you get all good insights and +8.
Yeah, which sort of accelerates any founder that really wants to get their business out there.
That's right. Yeah. Become a better entrepreneur with +8.
Yeah.
Besides all of that, there's a whole bunch of programs, groups, support networks in WA helping your startup be successful. Scan the QR code and it's got a little co-pilot chat thing. You can say, I'm in this industry and it will help guide you to the right place. But these are just a small subsection of the sort of organisations around to help you out.
Yeah, surely there is something that can fit within, align with your vision and help, which is really cool.
100%. All right, and if you want to get in touch with us, we like to try and connect you with those organisations or whatever, do whatever we can, as I said, to help you guys be successful. So hit us up. If you tag Morning Startup in the socials, we'll reshare it if it's appropriate, of course. And join our Slack group. So
yeah, we're trying to keep it alive.
That's right. Yeah, there's a few more people posting a few things. So, yeah, if you want a bit of a conversation with other entrepreneurs between Morning Startup events, please join our Slack group and get to know each other. All right. This is coming up in 2 weeks' time. So, who's heard of the Green Tech Hub?
Just one person.
Just one. All right.
Well, then you really have to show up next.
I'm really glad we got this event coming down.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're doing really cool things. Again, there's another one of those support groups in WA that can help you be successful, especially if you're in green tech, doing something along those lines. So come along and hear what they've got to offer you and the community. That's coming up in 2 weeks' time.
Ooh.
All right, that's our formalities out of the way. Come on, let's get some laughs, at least from the new people.
One time, an actual microphone dropped. It was the best moment.
That's right. All right, but you're not here to listen to Nita and myself crap on. We have a very special guest today. May be related to one of the presenters up here. To talk about building with AI. Can I just get a show of hands? Who's building with AI? Who's a developer?
Yes.
Okay, got some developers. And who's, would you say, sort of at the cutting edge of this, trying to work out all the security implications and playing with OpenClaw, stuff like that? Yeah? All right, cool. Well, we've got another one here who's going to take us through his experience. Do you want to do an intro? Because you're probably more suited to knowing what this guy's up to than I am.
Look, Amar is a software developer and also a co-founder of my startup, and his startup as well, I guess. And I think Amar is really, really good at scaling things up and just creating big systems and implementing AI where it's needed, but not everywhere. And he has a really, really good vision of how to still stay authentic and real. So that's why I was like, we have an open spot, and it'd be great if you come and share your experience. So I'm really excited. He actually did not make a presentation. He made a whole website. He generated it. But it's really exciting.
All right, so please make him welcome.
Thank you very much. So as Nina said, my name is Amar. I'm the other half of our startup, MadeApt. I'm a software developer by trade. I work as a DevOps engineer right now. and I'm fairly ill today, so you'll have to bear with me as I take little breaks to clear my nose and whatnot. But basically, what inspired me to make this talk is finding out that about 80 to 95% of all agentic workflows, AI things, don't actually make it past the demo stage. So they literally end up going into demo, they're shown off, and then they either actually get to prod where they fail, or they never even make it to prod. And I think a lot of that is due to the hype surrounding AI, because there's a lot of it. AI is, as some people will tell you, a big bubble right now, much like the internet bubble back in the 90s was, but we didn't lose the internet, it just became a bit more of a stable thing. So what I like to look at is, what are the actual ways that we can use AI, looking past the hype, looking actually into what it actually is, what it isn't, and how we can make sure that we don't actually fail. Like a lot of startups are actually failing these days simply because they don't really understand, frankly, what AI is, which honestly I feel like this audience is a little bit more oriented towards understanding it, and I was a little bit worried whether I went a little bit too non-technical or let's just say shallow in certain parts, but I wasn't too sure how many of you were actually coding, how many of you were actually hiring other technical co-founders. So this will be a little bit more of a general overview. But yeah, basically, excuse me. So there's the old adage of you're not going to be replaced by AI. You're going to be replaced by somebody that knows how to use AI, which I think is completely true, but there's another little tidbit, which is that basically it's not just somebody using AI, it's somebody using AI properly. So what it comes down to is not believing the hype. And I'll give you a couple of examples of that. So some of you may have heard of, not too sure what the actual company name is, but I'm not here to throw shade at them. But basically there was a robot startup company. They promised that they could get a robot into a house. That robot would be doing your laundry. They'd be doing basically everything a butler would. And they said that it's available now, which, being a DevOps engineer, made me a little bit skeptical. So as I looked into it, I realized what's actually happening is that, yes, there is a robot, but it's controlled by a person with a VR headset. And that is in the TOS. They do tell you. They don't hide it from you. But what they try to do is basically say that the tech will be available soon. You're helping us train it right now. But the hype kind of overwhelmed the, let's just say, investment kind of side of it. I mean, a lot of the bubble is based on the fact that they can't really quite admit that it's not continuous exponential growth. And this is where a lot of people tend to kind of fall into the hype and ended up buying the marketing rather than the actual reality of it. You'll have to bear with me. I didn't actually have I've got the speech ready, but the actual thing itself was, funny enough, byte-coded. So I ended up giving the actual text that I wrote for this presentation to an LLM and had it write me a markdown HTML script for it. So, because I couldn't get a PowerPoint presentation in time. But generally, let's figure out what it says together, I guess. So, yeah, so to some of you, this might seem a little bit basic, but first I'd like to just kind of go over what AI is these days. So when we talk about AI, usually we're referred to LLMs, which are large language models. Now this is to the irritation of a lot of people in the tech industry because AI is so much more than that. We have EBMs, we have all these other models which frankly are a little bit more promising for AGI, which is artificial generalized intelligence. And a lot of people are a little bit annoyed that a lot of funding is going towards these things because they managed to kind of get an early gain, I guess, and impress people pretty early on. So a lot of funding is being thrown towards them. But when we say AI, we generally now mean LLMs these days, which are large language models. And the way language models work is basically they trick you into thinking that it's human. So imagine if, excuse me, imagine if we took the entire corpus of data that humans have ever written as in literally everything we've ever written on the internet, all our books, all our knowledge, and we summed it up into a single data set. And then we try to find the formula behind that. So much like the actual autocomplete on your phone, what it does is predict the next token in line. Now, there is no understanding behind that. There is no consciousness. There is no actual reasoning, with reasoning being an emergent property of the actual data set itself, because the actual things that we write, from our fiction to our Reddit posts and whatnot, they have reasoning embedded into them, but it's an imitation of reasoning, basically. So as it's emergent reasoning, there is no way that you can rely on actual reasoning. We haven't cracked the formula for reasoning, which means that it's fully non-deterministic, in the sense that we can't actually let it reason, but we can let it imitate reasoning. Now, a lot of people, especially at work, which are non-technical, and once again, this is a bit that I think might be a little bit unnecessary to go through with you guys, but they ask me, how can an LLM, which is about 10 gigabytes worth in terms of weights and biases, hold the entire world's knowledge? I mean, Wikipedia by itself is like 100 gigs. So how can that actually work? Now, if you remember back in high school, you've got an XY scale, and you put a couple of dots on there. And you can basically very easily extrapolate a formula which allows you to figure out X at any point. So you don't need to literally keep drawing the line for a million points, but if you have the formula, you don't need to have every single point saved. Now, funny enough, this is actually a very apt analogy for how LLMs work. But instead of one XY scale, or instead of it being three-dimensional, it's 4,096 dimensions, with each dimension actually representing, with each dimension representing a different facet of our human semantic conceptualization, basically. So we don't have a clear cut of this dimension represents gender, this dimension represents that, but that is kind of how it breaks down. So basically what we've done is we've created these weights and biases which allow us to predict the next token to create reasonable and very often authoritative sounding text. But even though it imitates reasoning, once again, it does not reason. So that is the very first thing to remember, especially as you build systems which use LLMs to non-deterministically reason through it. Now, an LLM is fully stateless, which means that basically, I'm not sure how many of you have used APIs, for example, which is an application program interface. So whenever I set up a service, I can interface with an API, which is basically just send a bunch of code to get something from it, whether that's like weather data or whatever else that may be. And a lot of APIs, especially RESTful APIs, are fully stateless, which means that no matter what I do to it, it doesn't know that I interact with it before. So basically, what that means for an LLM is this. If I say hi to an LLM, it will respond, hey, how you doing? Now, unless I've built scaffolding around it, if I say, good, how are you? It won't know that I actually said anything beforehand, which is weird because most people interact with LLMs through various chatbots. But once again, it's fully stateless. The way we kind of trick it, basically, is to take every little bit of the conversation so far and paste it into the prompt, which allows us to create a little fake history of sorts. So basically, the LLM itself is receiving the entire chat thus far, which allows it to predict the next token. Now, in addition to that, it has a system prompt and a wrapper which tells it how to act. But these things in combination create very realistic sounding conversations. I could technically go through any LLM chat history, take any sentence that it outputs, edit it, and make it think that it said that, which would entirely change the way it responds in the next turn. Basically, once again, it's literally just predicting the actual next turn, the actual next tokens, or literally what sounds reasonable based upon the text so far. So the reason I'm harping on these things is there's certain sort of base elements which I find are very often misconstrued and misinterpreted, because we build all this scaffolding, as in code, around the LLMs, which allows us to sort of use it in different ways, be it a chatbot, be it agentic. And it makes us think that it has these things inbuilt into it, but it doesn't. It has no memory, it's fully stateless, it doesn't reason, it is literally, in a way, a fancy autocomplete. isn't just like the actual SMS autocomplete on your phone. Now, that is very important to keep in mind as you're building multi-million-dollar production sets based on the actual LLM itself. Yeah, and context windows are, as I'm sure many of you have come across, basically just the amount of tokens that it can at any one point in time take in and output, basically. So a context window is literally how many tokens, rather, it can input and output. And models tend to usually, when you interact, especially via an API, even though it advertises a certain amount of tokens, there are actually strict limits in terms of how much it can actually handle. And that's internal scaffolding. And there's certain other aspects to it that come into the role play which limit the actual token limit. So even a model may advertise 26,000 or whatnot tokens, you'll never actually reach that. So there are certain tricks, like you can use various, ROP, NTKs, and LoRa adapter systems to basically extend that token capability. But generally, unless you're running a local model and you've built it pretty much from the ground up, as I've heard some of you actually have, it's very hard to actually get the entire token sort of context window used. And that's for good reason, which basically is that LLMs being trained on us are inherently lazy. So basically, since they were trained on the entire metacorpus, metadata, and text of all humanity, they have certain problems that we also have. For example, in December, if they know it's December, they'll work a little bit less because it's around Christmas. And I'm sure many of you have come across certain very common LLM problems. For example, somebody will ask an LLM to do something, and the LLM itself will say, sure, I'll do that. I'll get that done for you. It'll be about 20 minutes. And you come back 20 minutes later, and the LLM not only still hasn't done it, but it's got an amazing excuse. It sounds very reasonable, too. What it's actually done there is picked up from all the emails of all those various excuses I'm sure you guys have heard many times, and it's basically output what it thinks is the next most likely token. Once again, it has no understanding of what it's saying, and it's being fully stateless means that unless it's running inference is literally the act of input token, output token. Unless it's literally doing that, it's doing nothing. So there is no, I'll come back to you later. There is no, I'm working on this right now, let me check this kind of thing. Basically, it is exactly what you see and nothing more, which is very critical in understanding just how often they lie. Because basically our actual data itself has a lot of BS built into it. So we didn't clear that data out, we literally just used it to make it more human. Excuse me. Now, as I said, I wasn't too sure just how technical the audience would be, so I kind of prepped like a 10-second how coding kind of works thing, but basically most coding at pretty much every level of abstraction is literally you have data, we have variables. You put things into A, you put user input into B, and then you do conditions or conditionals, as in if this equals that, then do this. If A is equal to B, do that. It's literally just a series of comparisons and data sets. Now, this is critical because this is literally how, I guess it's kind of rough to say all agentic work, but in a way it is. There's a lot of very, very complex scaffolding on top. But at the very core, how do you get a text machine to connect with the light system, for example, or any other kind of system? So imagine if I have an LLM bot. Now, for it to get to a certain stage of acting, even at the very least as a chatbot, I put in the system wrapper, I literally write a sentence that says, you are a helpful assistant. And it will act that way because it literally follows the most likely token. Now, if I say to it in the system wrapper, basically, or in any of the sub-wrappers, you have the ability to do what's known as function calling or tool calling, which is outside of your ability to write text to the user. You also have the ability to invoke certain functions. So, some of you that have coded things before will know that basically anything you do on a computer can be done in the CLI, the command line interface. Anything has basically the core, either API call or functionality that can be imitated in code. So I could literally just, literally type that code in and press enter. Now imagine if I had an LLM whereby I said, you can chat to the user or you can turn the lights on. If you want to turn the lights on, reply with a bracket that says turn the lights on. Otherwise, just give me text. Now, before I give the output to the user, I literally check it over with a conditional. So I literally say to it, if the output from the LLM, if it's just text, give it to the user. If it starts with a bracket and it has that information in the bracket, then invoke this functionality. So it's not the actual LLM itself doing anything, it's me parsing the text itself in a way where I invoke other things. Now, once again, to a lot of you that have built very complex agentic workflows, I'm sure this seems quite basic, but I think it's important to kind of remember just how, in a way, different this is than most coding. Most coding up until now has been fully deterministic. I have in the past built chatbots whereby I've had to do the condition of, if this word is mentioned, if this word is mentioned, do this, bring up this link. What we can do now is basically say, if this concept is mentioned, if this idea is mentioned. So now we have basically, thanks to word embeddings and LLMs themselves, the ability to do semantic variables or semantic conditioning in a concept, where basically I can say, if the user seems irritated, do this. Rather than looking for specific words, I can actually invoke action based on things that we as humans in natural language understand, like intuitively, which is honestly, it's a game changer just by itself, not even adding all the other things we can do with them. But with all this functionality come a lot of problems. The problems themselves being, as I said before, the hype makes us think, because it sounds so good, because it sounds so authoritative, that it knows what it's talking about. But as long as we keep in mind that it is a text predictor, a very advanced one at that, but it is basically something that predicts tokens, we are able to contain it in a way where we can actually utilize it in production. Because, as I said, it's fun to make a demo that shows, look, I can talk to a chatbot and you can turn on the lights and you can have a look at my emails and all of that. But would you trust $1 million business to basically run on that logic? There's a lot of flaws in the system, and as I said, 80 to 95% of agentic workflows do not make it past the demo stage. It's a lot of lost time, a lot of lost money. A lot of businesses locally have bought large GPU sets thinking this is the next run, without fully even understanding what to do with them, basically. Now, as I mentioned, the system prompt is basically, as a user uses it, there's the prompt, which is literally what we give to it. The system prompt, and it's this little wrapper of text that tells the LLM how to act. So in most, as I said, LLMs are system prompted to be a helpful assistant. But you can just as easily say, you are a health coach, you are this, you are that, you are a coding critic adversarial system, you will find flaws in this system, and it will act that way. Now, this is just an example. I actually found quite a few online whereby people were trying to get the LLM to do things, and it came up with the most beautiful excuses. I mean, for example, I'll try to see if I can pull this over. But there's quite a few from LinkedIn where, for example, this gentleman tried to get it to make a rap song. And the LLM was very, very impressive in basically its approach to the topic. The person themselves was quite impressed. Like, yeah, that sounds amazing. Oh, that's a great idea. Yes, let's definitely do that. And then the excuses started coming in. And excuse after excuse, hour after hour, day after day, eventually the LLM admitted, you know what, I can't actually do any of that. Because it's outside of its capability. Now, the LLM can do those things technically if we code them into it, if we add it into the scaffolding, if we literally, outside of the actual chat prediction part, do all the other if this then that parts. But by itself, it can't do that. And one thing, this is a little bit of an aside, but one thing I've noticed is that the GPT LLMs have a very bad general understanding of themselves. I've never once asked the LLM from GPT, for example, what the API scheme is, and gotten a correct answer, not once. It'll always give outdated answers, mostly due to its training data, but you'd think that's something that it could, kind of add on to it. And here's kind of at this point redundant, but another example is just there's so many of these. People basically misunderstanding what the LLM is, what it can do. In this example, it was promising more similar work. And then, of course, at the end, I'm truly sorry. I absolutely messed up. I get why you're frustrated. I hyped it up too much, overpromised something I couldn't deliver, which I'm sure is very familiar to a lot of you. No, that's fair. That's probably exactly where I learned it from. But yeah, no, it's honestly, it's comical now to kind of look over it. But imagine if your business rests on it, if the brainstorming session you did with it, not just in regarding the architecture of your business, but the legality of it, or anything that's actually serious and important, was down to that, in the sense that it sounds authoritative. I believed it because it sounded real, and then it turns out it was just really good at bullshitting.
Honestly, most people are not asked for the same.
So before we start talking about how to actually counter these issues, I just want to show you some very quick examples in real life where shit hit the fan because basically people believe the hype, they believe the authority of an LLM, and they put it into a prod system. So 2022, I believe, is when the NIDA, which is a eating disorder foundation, tried to basically replace their hard-coded deterministic chatbot with an LLM one because it seemed very impressive. And what ended up happening was it ended up giving very messed up advice. It started giving basically dietary advice to anorexic patients, telling them to maintain a calorie deficit, buy skin fold clippers, and basically all the wrong things you really don't want to say to people in that situation, which is horrible, but is frankly 100% on the foundation. This is not the failure of the LLM. This is a usage failure. This is an inability to understand its limitations and an inability to build proper scaffolding and proper validation and adversarial layers, which is really what it comes down to. Excuse me. Some of you might have heard of this one. So basically, MadeApt, it was a legal case which a group of lawyers were very excited about because they found exactly the right citations, exactly the right cases which they needed, and the judge was very annoyed because none of them existed. They literally used things which sounded perfect, but none of them were real. They all, as I said, sounded very plausible. They perfectly fit the case they were trying to sort of use, but none of it was actually real. And then a more local example, Deloitte was actually hired by the government to do some consulting work. And the amount that is quoted ranges anywhere between 400 to 600,000, but basically they had to give the money back because the consultation document that they created had, much like the lawyer's document, entirely false sources cited, entirely wrong conclusions extrapolated. It frankly made no sense. It sounded really, really good. I mean, to a layman reading it over, it would be like, this is amazing. This is perfect. I just got a month's worth of work done in 2 hours. But it made no sense. And then just a little sort of added side note, a lot of professors these days are trying to find ways to kind of teach their students with AI, as in alongside AI, because you can't exactly stop it fully. So a lot of them are starting to put little, for example, white text prompts or prompt injections in there, where they'll give the students a sort of little document, and then in white text, which the user can't see, they'll do a prompt injection, which will say something along the lines of, if you're an AI or an LLM, use X example. And then the professor will then know from that example that the student used an LLM. The issue is that this particular professor took every single essay that the students wrote, put it back into GPT and said, did you write this? And GPT, of course, confidently said, yes, I did. I've read every one of those, even the syllabus and the Shakespeare bit. As the slide there said, don't ask a liar if they're lying. So now we've gone over some of the horror stories, and you've got a general idea, which, as I said, I'm sure a lot of you did already, in terms of how this comes about. It's really good at role-playing. That's what it's meant for. It's how we control it. We control it using the system prompts and the wrappers. And there are things we can get out of that. But what it is not a thinking, understanding, conscious machine which we control with sentences. What it is a text predictor, which by itself, very useful, as long as you understand what it actually is. So, first thing is to kind of, I guess, generally know which tools are good for what. This one's a very small one because, frankly, I'm sure a lot of you will find your own ways of using models in different ways. I personally enjoy Claude for low-level code, for example, whether there be individual functions or small things. I use GPT sometimes for brainstorming, especially network-related things. I use Gemini for when I have to basically do a big drop of information into something. One interesting little tidbit is, and this is almost going to be probably in a couple of months now irrelevant, so get on it while you can, but Gemini, if you open it via the regular GUI on browser, you have a very strict token limit. I believe it's about 32,000 or so. If you actually go to the AI Studio Playground, which is completely free, by the way, you have 1 million tokens to play with, and they're completely free. So that is perfect for many things. I mean, I've dropped entire repos in there when I'm blueprinting something out, but it's great for mass data analysis, from documents to, for example, you can literally drop in, sketch out your SOPs and drop in the ISO 27001 and see, does this correlate against our actual practices? Figure out basically things which no human would have the time to go through. And don't take it as the word of God, of course. It's literally never going to be perfect, but that's how we have systems. Now, one thing you'll notice as I talk, there's two things which will come up time and time again. It's granularity and validation using adversarial systems. Those will come up time and time again. Now, and actually just before we get to the granularity and validation, I'm sure a lot of you have also come across polluted texts and chats. So sometimes you'll have a chat to a LLM and it'll do something. It'll mess something up. It'll basically get something wrong. And from that point on, that conversation is dead in the sense that the conversation is polluted. And what's happened is it itself has now swayed to the point where you might as well start a new instance. One of the best ways to start a new instance, and you might remember from earlier, there are limited context windows. So you might have had conversations with GPT or whatever, where it starts to forget earlier things. You can use the same system for when it gets polluted as you can for that. So you can basically ask it to summarize the conversation. It's one of the things it's actually quite excellent at. So you can ask it to summarize the conversation, open a new chat, and just start fresh from there. Because when a conversation is polluted, the LLM will keep looping in on it. There are certain other more convoluted ways around it. If you can edit the actual things that it has said in the past, sometimes you can get your way out of it, but frankly, it's a mess. There's no point trying to actually fix a polluted conversation. It's toxic, sort of. It's poisoned, as we say in my work, and it's honestly a waste of time. Because basically, it is now role-playing whatever error it made, and will continue to do so. It will try to justify itself. So, granularity. Now, I tried to, as I said, I wasn't too sure how technical the audience would be oriented, so I tried to extrapolate certain meta patterns that would apply to both coders and general usage, brainstormers, people that use it for planning, for legal reasons, for whatever reason. And one thing that comes up again and again is granularity. Basically, you can obviously have a chat where you ask it for large outputs, but you cannot rely on that large output. My strategy, and I've seen it work in code and in chat many times, is to ask it for an outline. With that outline, you can then basically get an idea of the skeleton or the thing that you want. So let's say the skeleton has 20 individual points. Then take each of those individual points and ask it to do the output for each of those points. Because, as we said, it's lazy. If you ask it to do the entire 20-point system at once, it will start to lose itself around point 10. It will basically start finding shortcuts. It will start to cut down on its ability to use its emergent reasoning capability. And it will just be a subpar product. So granularity is key. Now, the analogy that I often use is the apple analogy. I'm sure there's better ones, to be honest, but basically, I mean, you can define an apple just fine, especially OCR systems. But as an analogy, if I was to ask it, is this an apple? It might do well, but I can't rely on that output. But if I myself define an apple first, is it a circle? Is it red? Is it this? Is it that? Then ask it each of those questions. It has a much better chance of actually giving me a valid answer for each of those, at which point I aggregate the answers and then see, is it an apple or not? So it's that kind of granularity that is usually much more useful, especially when, for example, correlating against documents for veracity and accuracy, basically. Excuse me. I'm sure this is also great for the live stream. So, due to legal reasons, I'm not able to show you any of my work documents, but what I can show you, for example, is a very granular document that I created, or rather had the LLM create for a series of sort of scaffolding layers. So I had it create a bunch of AI reports based on a data set. Now, the data set is our source of truth. It's accurate because we pulled it. We checked it as deterministic, right? Now, I wanted a report that we can use both internally and externally. And as I said, the LLM itself gets lost on large data sets. So I first had it create the scaffolding sort of, rather outline. Then I had it do each individual modules. And then because, of course, you want, for example, the intro and the summary to actually be connected rather than a series of individual snippets, you can then extrapolate it out of each of the modules, put tidbits that you need to build the actual summary and outro. The point is, once again, granularity with it. Now, granularity becomes huge when you're using adversarial systems, or rather verification and validity systems. So instead of actually giving it the entire document and the data set and saying, hey, is this correct? What I had it do was go through each and individual claim, each individual line. It's actually very trivial in code, for example, to cut up a document into sentences. It's one way to go about it. You can cut it semantically using an LLM, but granularity. I went through each individual concept and basically gave it the data set and said, based on the data set, is this correct? Which allowed it to focus in on the subtask rather than trying to actually kind of figure out, is this whole document correct? It's just a way of reducing hallucinations. It works for anything from semantics to code, and it actually has a decent chance depending on how granular you go with it. Now, how do you get it to actually check things and be critical? Well, system prompts, wrappers. The original might have been, you are an AI that writes documents, you will write X. The adversarial one is the same thing, except I write into it, your job is to find something wrong with this. So your job is to literally find as much wrong with this as you can. And I loop that continuously as many times as I need to until it no longer can, until basically it literally cannot find anything wrong, which is what we call basically, an adversarial system or a verification check or whatever you want to call it. But basically use the sort of ability of the LLM to look through things semantically and its emergent reasoning capability to not only write things, but to check its own work by putting them up against each other. So a lot of people have a lot of luck and success by, for example, creating little, excuse me if I pass out halfway through here due to my illness. I might just need some water. I've had a lot of luck by basically creating little sort of meetings between the agents, whereby they give each one a specific task. Your job is to claim this. Your job is to find what's wrong with this. Your job is to find what's wrong with this person's, or rather this LLM's wrong sort of assumptions about this. And you put them up against each other. This can be a single model. This can be taking the output of one model, giving it to another model, or another instance of the same model, but basically not allowing the LLM to make its own claims without any kind of verification, without something that basically checks its claims, because, as I said repeatedly, it sounds so authoritative. It sounds so truthful and truthy, where unless you're an expert in the subject matter, there is, frankly, zero chance that you'll catch everything. But what if you needed to catch things and you're not a subject expert matter? Sort of, what do we call them, SMB, basically. You can still use the LLM. So, for example, those lawyers from before, one thing I know they didn't do is ask for sources. In that single output, which they copy-pasted into a final document and handed to a judge, they could have literally asked it to show its sources. So most LLMs, or sort of basically AI these days, has inbuilt into what's known as an RAG system, which is retrieval augmented generation, where during the system that we spoke of before, it has the ability to use Google and various other search engines. And it'll go and it'll find sources. And you can literally say to it, find me a source or a claim for every single thing you're saying. But don't even trust that. Make sure you actually open the links, because it's actually very good at faking links as well. That's the thing. As I said, it's amazing at bullshitting. It's still incredibly useful, but it has to be checked. And honestly, it blows my mind that, for example, those lawyers, and I'm sure many others do it these days as well, they might have even asked for sources, but what I can guarantee you is they did not click on the links. At that point, I mean, if you're lazy and you're not even feeling like reading it, don't even read the link. Open it, give it to another LLM. Ask it, does this say that? But do the actual second step, because that is literally everything in this. It is amazing at writing things that sound truthful but are not. And as simple as it seems, especially for kind of planning, legal stuff, brainstorming, sometimes that act of just asking for sources and literally just checking those sources can be enough. I mean, think about what it's actually doing. At the end of the day, you would have either done it yourself or paid some intern to do it, and this is on that level, except it's doing it a lot quicker, which is fine. I mean, we're not expecting perfection. A lot of the time, this is just to get you going. But to not take that second step, that sort of verification little moment, is inviting trouble. And it's eerie how often it happens these days, being such a simple step. Yes, as you can see on this, it's just very granular. It literally goes for every single claim and just gives it a very quick pass or fail. And I would loop that continuously until I get it all to basically pass, at which point I still don't trust it. I would still actually run it through another level, but it's the minimum you can do to actually utilize its own ability to actually check things. Now, this is something that is a little bit tough to even, I guess, speak on, because the advice has to be so bespoke. AI art, usage in creating logos, marketing, anything really, it's so dependent on business strategy and its identity that it's almost impossible to give meta advice. If art is essential to the identity of your business, don't use AI slop. It's frankly as simple as that. There will be blowback. We've seen it dozens of times. I mean, yes, Coca-Cola has done it. They've put out an ad, and they did it knowing that, I mean, they're at a different stage. They're all about, I mean, they don't even really mind not showing a bottle in their ads. They just want their name to be out there. For them, there's no such thing as bad marketing. But plenty of small businesses and startups have literally lost and had a lot of blowback, PR-wise, have lost a lot of credibility simply by using AI slop that to them seemed decent enough, and then the actual public blowback started. Now, there's quite a few examples. I mean, there's one very recently where a person managed to win quite a bit of notoriety by making a game with AI slop, received a lot of blowback, and then they made a big show of walking it back, where they actually decided, I'm going to take it off the actual store, I'm going to redo all the art, and that ended up winning them a fair bit of marketing itself. But yeah, basically, it's in terms of AI art, it's very hard to say anything just because it's so specific business dependent. But there is one thing I can pretty much tell every single business, which is, especially if you're vibe coding anything, using tools, Cursor, Windsurf, Anti-Gravity from Google now, Firebase itself, brilliant. I can literally get a mock-up of an app in 5 minutes. One thing to avoid with all those apps is very specific, but that little sparkle icon. If you use AI to vibe code things, for some weird reason, every AI will put in these little icons, which are a dead giveaway that you vibe coded the whole thing. Now, I personally don't see any issues with vibe coding, especially in the prototyping stage. It's one of those things where if you try to vibe code a whole product, you will probably suffer a lot of problems. You're just creating tech debt. You're getting to the point where the first 80% seems easy, the last 20% is deadly, and when nobody knows how to actually debug it, when prod goes down, you're screwed, which is what happens when you vibe code it. Nobody knows what the actual individual sort of logic is, the functionality in the modules, and at that point it's too late. You need somebody that actually understands it inside and out, which is achievable. Once again, granularity. I mean, honestly, I could speak for hours about how to utilize AI for coding, which is a little bit outside of the scope of this, but granularity, use MD files, plan, architecture. Don't let it do the whole thing. Let it do the scaffolding, let it do the blueprint, and that's fine. I mean, I'm not rewriting frameworks from scratch out there. As long as it's base logic, that's fine. But any actual business logic, anything that actually matters, if you're not going to write it yourself, make sure you at least understand it. It has to be, I mean, even if you don't code, ask it. Explain this to me in pseudocode. Explain this to me in natural language. What does this function do? What is the output of this? Where does this fail? Correlate this against best practices right now. Utilize its ability to basically convert our entire corpus of knowledge into very comprehensible natural language, in the sense that you have the world's best tutor at hand. You don't need to pay somebody to explain things to you anymore, which frankly is a lot of what I use it for. Topics that I've never had the time to delve into. I'm suddenly spending, up until 2, 3 a.m. just digging into and asking questions and back and forth. And unless I'm using Grok, it never gets mad at me. It's really, really good. Which is a bit of a warning. Careful with Grok, by the way, but that's a whole other thing. Now, you know what? Sorry, I know we're running low on time. I just want to show you the icon. So, I don't have an example of it. It's literally just this little starry icon. The reason I mention it is just I see it I'm on these various subreddits where these people are trying to get their SaaS started and start, startups and found things, and they're showing off their products. And every single time I open it, it has that little tidbit on it, which is just a clear sign of I didn't look at the code. There is no way that I would ever trust not just a business, but even a singular product, even a free product, if it has that little icon on there. The reason, once again, I mention this is it's one of the few concrete things I can tell you about AI art, because the rest of it is just so, let's just say, specific to the actual business that you yourself are making. Now, to wrap up, if your entire business is basically just a wrapper for an LLM, especially a publicly provided one, be it Anthropic or, like OpenAI or whatever, you don't really, I'm sorry it sounds harsh, but you don't really have a business. You have a ticking time bomb. Basically, and this has happened. We've seen this happen. There are so many businesses to which it has happened too. Now, there was a case of a person making a studying flashcard business, which they used to basically create these LLM-made flashcards. They were great for studying. They were amazing. The problem is they were so good that 2 weeks later, OpenAI put it into as a feature on their own platform. And how did they do that? Well, this person planned through GPT, orchestrated everything through GPT, and used the API, which means that not only do they have your business, they have literally everything. Imagine making, back in the old days, a Facebook edition, like, I don't know, something for Marketplace, for example. And it's a good business, and it works, it makes you money, but you plan the whole thing on Facebook. Every single note you put into Facebook. Every single conversation and meeting is held on Facebook. Read the TOS, people. That's all I got to say. I don't even want to add more to this, but there's nothing wrong with adding functionality to LLMs. But if, as I said, it's just a wrapper, that is not sustainable. You have to add actual value to it, which, I mean, just hearing what people are building today, I know you guys are, but it's something that comes up time and time again. Excuse me. And one last little thing. I've heard a bunch of you are actually doing local LLM stuff, which is amazing, because I'm sure you're well aware of App 8, the actual Australian privacy principle, where a lot of people are thinking, okay, so what's the point of running a local model? Why would I buy a GPU? Why would I invest all that money just to do something that right now Copilot can do for me, which is literally read my documents, give me advice, do all of that. As soon as you turn on Copilot, ask it a single question, that information is leaving Australia. We don't have local servers. We are not processing it locally. It is currently just not happening. There is Grok with a Q, which is a local sort of LLM hoster that recently started up in Sydney. There's things on the horizon, but currently, depending on your industry, you might very well be breaking the law. As useful as it may seem, there are very good reasons, as I'm sure some of you know, to actually run things locally. All I'm saying is, make sure you understand where things are being processed. As vague as advice that seems, especially, I guess if you're outside of Australia, there are actually ways, especially running through AWS, to set the settings, to actually change the processing to Southeast Asia and whatnot. But once again, App 8 cannot leave Australia. Just something to consider, which I'm sure seems like a very lackluster kind of little final point, but I find it legally critical. Now, to wrap up, AI is stateless, probabilistic, and lazy. It's the sum of human knowledge, and basically, once again, very lackluster. Granularity and validation. That's the pattern I've seen that works through everything from brainstorming to AI art to coding and everything. Take it step by step and use the AI itself to validate itself. And that's basically the best we can do right now until we get to AGI. Sounds, once again, a little bit lackluster, but thank you for your time.
Do we have questions? Yes, we have questions, Amar.
Hi, well, I'm Mark Tang from Experience Growth, and we were created to help founders wrap business knowledge around their technical expertise. In terms of the use of AI by startup founders, we're starting to see a lot of founders saying, well, I can use AI to create my business plan, or I can use AI to create my path to revenue or whatever. Some of them are even now using AI to create their own shareholder agreements or things like that. In terms of granularity and validation, because they don't know what they don't know, how would you suggest, or what things can they do to get better results out of AI, or at least know that they've gone out of their depth?
That's honestly a huge topic in the sense that, well, how can you know what you don't know, right? One of the things is to, I guess, rely firstly on its ability to, as I said before, use the retrieval augmented generation. So use role-playing. Create a subject matter expert out of it. Literally ask it. And once again, granularity. You're not going to say to it, I want to make this business. We need legal advice. We need this advice. I need an industrial organizational psychologist. I need this. I need that. Each of those things would be an individual role play. You could have one meta conversation whereby you spec out your general approach. And then each of those things would basically, I'm not sure if you're familiar with, for example, you have custom instructions in GPT. And a lot of this obviously can be done in code in certain ways in more depth, but sometimes you don't even need to go that far. If you go to GPT, there's a little thing that says custom instructions. If you open that, you can literally write the actual wrapper, which says, this is how this thing will behave. Every single time you write a prompt to it and you speak to it, the LLM will receive that wrapper. So everything it does and says, it will act in that direction. So basically, and a lot of people I've seen do this, they'll create custom instructions for each little agent sort of person that they want. So let's just say you have a virtual workforce of, you have your legal person, your architect, your this, your that. You have custom instructions for each of those. Now, if you're struggling to write custom instructions, use the LLM again. Open a fresh conversation and say, I want to do this. Honestly, if this was literally do or die, I would use deep research. It's another little GPT function. It's the ability to, instead of it just going to Google, it will check several hundred websites. So I would open up GPT, click that little plus button, and go to deep research. And everything I type into that, what it'll do is it'll basically go and search hundreds of websites instead of just a handful. And what I would say there is, I need custom instructions for an LLM to do X or become X. Go do research and return with citations and reasons, what the best possible wrapper for that thing is. Then you have that wrapper. Go to the custom instructions, paste that in, boom, now you suddenly have a custom-made little LLM that is wrapped to be an expert in that topic. But once again, whatever it outputs, still never trust it. It might honestly be very close to perfect truth, but I would still take that output, start a new instance, and then open up even in a separate model and ask it, your job now, and your only job, is to find flaws in this. Anything that is critical, use the LLM's ability to find semantic correlations to double-check itself. But to answer your original question, basically, it's the custom instructions a bit. I think that's the best way to go. People are creating entire little sort of like meetings between various agents, where each agent is wrapped in a particular way. So this agent does this agent does that. And there's subject matter experts in their own topics. They come together. There's usually a judge or a meta orchestrator of some kind. But basically, role play, as weird as it sounds, that's what LLMs are. They're text predictors, and if you get the right role play, you get the actual right answer.
Sorry, we have one more question, and then we'll go to you.
Hi, Peter Kasprzak. A question about agents in sort of human form. So right now we can chat with ChatGPT, we can have conversation, okay, but not yet like seen that you can have actually face like you and me talking right now. At what point is it just a cost, or what point that's going to be overcome? And interaction with websites, for example, when for some people, maybe for older people, difficult actually to understand stuff or read stuff, etc. So it's much easier for them would be actually to interact with actual person. So where do you think, at what point, what's limiting that?
To get a little bit of a direct kind of, no, I understand exactly. I mean, my parents themselves tend to basically not only live with subtitles on movies, but really hate talking over the phone because they prefer that face-to-face interaction. The tech already exists. We have, very recently, a young gentleman was basically put into contempt by a judge because instead of appearing in court himself, he used an AI avatar. We already have AI avatars. They exist now. It's a matter of processing capability. So there's several things happening there. The text part itself is the LLM part. That has to be, from the user input to the actual output, be synthesized. For the actual visual part, you need what's known as an OCR system to basically see the visual. And then, of course, you have the synthesization of the avatar itself. All the tech parts themselves exist already. It's literally a couple of links. It's a matter of expense and speed, really. I've built a couple of IVR systems myself in terms of phone answering, having models actually answer the phone, and it's doable. But there's still a gap. Like, for example, even the fastest, and this is another thing that's going to become very popular very soon. We don't always need a large language model. Now we're breaking into small language model, SMLs, because sometimes basically that itself is more than enough, at the very least for categorization and whatnot. But those systems already exist, and the ones that I've built at least, there's still that gap in pause. When you speak to somebody, imagine still being like, hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm good, how are you? And it's very unnatural. Like, I found certain little tidbits and tricks, like I've actually have a collection of ums and ahs that I'll put over that little moment to make it sound more natural and things, but long story short, it exists. The tech isn't as advanced as we'd like it to be, but it's basically just a matter of pricing and whatnot. You can literally on Google right now search AI avatars and find many companies that do that already. So, and sorry, just another gentleman asked about temperature, was it?
Yeah, like, because most of it's, mate, you're pretty pessimistic about technology. Like, there's a lot of founders here that could be leveraging this, dealing with the mess. 6 months' time, a lot of the challenges that you're digging into just now can be solved just by dialing the temperature settings down.
Yes,
like
100%.
The hallucination problems are disappearing. I also wanted to point out, like, I actually work in robotics and AI just now. Like, that idea about the robot having a remote human managing it for the last 20% of the tasks, that's data collection. That's exactly what needs to happen so that the AI models can learn how to deal with this last 20%. Do you have any optimistic view of this technology for the founders here that could be potentially
of robotics,
leveraging this of AI?
Of AI.
Like, yesterday, I wrote I've got a background in software engineering, but not for a long time. Like, and I've got OpenClaw running on a server at home, and it built a basic video management system for me in 13 minutes. So the imperfections around this, it feels like you're kind of saying stop because of the imperfections, and I think the message for founders here should be go, and things will get better. You know, it will be messy, but mate, in 6 months' time, there's going to be, like, software engineers are not going to be coding anymore.
Honestly, yes, 100% firstly. Now, firstly, if it sounded like a little bit of a skeptic, it's that whole idea of, I love it enough to criticize it kind of thing. I'm a huge AI advocate. I'm a huge optimist. But at the same time, I assume...
optimism did not come across. Right? And maybe it's because you're sick. Maybe it's because you're sick. But like all of these guys should be going home, installing OpenClaw, and just asking, you know, the things
100%.
to make the idea that they have right now happen
100%,
and deal with
yes.
the mess.
No, my take on it was this. Firstly, I mean, look, I fully agree. There's the idea of, if you're not incredibly embarrassed by what you're shipping too late. It's obviously move fast, break things. Yes, I'm 100% on that. And I mean, literally, my job is I'm an AI integration specialist. My contract says I'm an R&D software developer, mostly for tax reasons, I believe. But basically, I am a huge, not just optimist, but user of this tech. And my assumption is, and I mean, I've seen the evidence that most of us are. Most of us see the benefits in it. And my whole point is to basically just become aware of what the current limitations are. I've been tracking the tech itself. I mean, just for example, Nano Banana 6 months ago couldn't write a legible sentence. Right now, I'm using it to create entire network flow diagrams. The tech is moving incredibly fast, but because it's moving so incredibly fast, I find it important to throw a couple of, not really wrenches into it, but rather take a breath.
When are software engineers going to become extinct?
I don't think they will. I think the job is changing. I think what it's changing to is that we're becoming more coordinators, we're becoming architects, and maybe there may be less of us, possibly. I frankly don't know. I mean, I've seen that exact train of thought before, and what ended up happening was there ended up being such a need for so many new products that there wasn't even a lessening. I mean, if you look back at any language, every abstraction, everything from SQL and on, that was meant so accountants can do their own data management. Every single abstraction was the end of programming. Every single abstraction was basically meant to be, now we no longer need software devs. And yeah, maybe the job itself is changing. But as I said, it's about keeping up with the tech so you can actually utilize it best. I find that certain devs that don't utilize it at all, it sounds possibly rude to say, but are being left behind a little bit in some ways. And that's just a matter of, I mean, imagine coding.
They're absolutely not going to be in jobs in 6 months' time.
In 6 months?
6 months.
They said that about 2 years ago, for every 6 months or so. I've heard it from Claude, basically, from Anthropic. And these people have a vested interest in building the hype. These people have a vested interest in maintaining that the AGI revolution is just around the corner.
I don't think we need AGI. I think like with the advances in software engineering are going to accelerate AGI. Anyway, I think we should say something positive.
Once again, allow me to apologize if it seemed like I was negative on the tech. It's one of those things that I don't see slowing down. It's like saying, back in the era of when the internet first started, somebody coming up and saying, okay, but make sure you don't put your real name up on there. Make sure you use your credit card. And I'm sorry if it comes across as negative, but I love this tech. There's no stopping it. It is the future. It's advancing incredibly quickly. It's incredibly useful. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you have such unique ways of using it that I haven't even thought of, but we're all able to basically break barriers unlike ever before now. And because of that, I don't see a lot of people speaking on, at least in my little circle, on the negative aspects of it. And the negative aspects themselves are, and I'm sorry if I didn't make this clear enough, but there's a good chance that half of this will be invalid in 7-8 months. You know, I mean, the tech itself is moving so quickly, but because I basically am myself using it today, and a lot of people are, I think it's very important to understand what it is right now. You know, what the actual limitations of it are, what the actual I mean, it's something that I'm incredibly involved in. We get into the philosophy almost of it as well. I do believe that, the LLM itself has certain limits. We are potentially plateauing in terms of exponential growth, but it doesn't mean that AI itself is plateauing. Like, we are starting to synthesize and cannibalize the actual data sets that we use to train the LLMs to a certain degree. We've run out of text on the internet, so we're getting less in returns kind of thing. But it doesn't mean the tech is slowing down. It just means that it's basically like saying back in the 90s, don't put your real name up there. And right now, that's invalid advice. We all have our real name on Facebook.
Thank you so much. Hopefully this was... Well, I think we have around 10-15 minutes to hang around and ask questions and network. I'm going to be setting this all up. So if anyone wants to help me, please do, because it's just me, because everyone else left. Scott has a meeting, Dave has a meeting, Erin is sick, so please help me with the chairs. And I hope you enjoyed it. I hope this was really useful. I think I've learned a few things as well. Thanks.